rise and shine.
Rise and shine, chop chop.
Rise and shine.
Rise and shine, it's a beautiful day.
Rise and shine, rise and shine.
Rise and shine.
Rise and shine.
You guys are nerds.
This is exactly what the nerds want.
Our name shall become legend, spoken in hushed tones by nerds across the galaxy.
If you build it, nerds will come.
Nerds must love this place.
They think we're a bunch of nerds, and I'll tell you something, I think they're right.
Let the nerds take over.
Let the nerds take over.
Rise and shine, nerds. We hope you've got your coffee because it's time for our brand new morning show for Love Thy Nerd and anyone who finds themselves with a cross-section of nerd culture and church culture. I'm Radio Matt. I'm the Director of Content and Resources at Love Thy Nerd.
And I'm Daedra, last daughter of Krypton.
Joining me today and this whole week is Luke Filipiak, one of a handful of official Love Thy Nerd staff members and our IRL events coordinator, mainly in charge of our missions trips to conventions and also heading up the team this year for our first ever Nerd Culture Ministry Summit. He also streams on Twitch as Frostbite4 or IV. Thank you for joining us, Luke. How are you today?
Hello, happy to be here. I am doing very well, actually.
So one thing which I'll admit is mostly my fault is that despite us working together for probably a little over a year now, or more than maybe more than a year, a while,
yeah, give or take.
I don't really know too much about you beyond surface level stuff. I don't know.
Perhaps I kept it that way.
Perhaps that was the plan. I don't know your history. I don't know your faith journey. I don't know what really motivates you in your life. And I am attempting to remedy this this week as myself and all of our listeners get to know the real Luke. You down for that?
Sure. The short answer is coffee. There it is. What motivates me? Coffee.
Well, today I do want to start with some basic questions. So basic level question that we used to all ask in chat rooms is, location based. So where did you grow up?
Yeah. Starting off with the complicated questions. I moved all over the place as a kid. We were never in. I never remembered a house that we lasted longer than like 2 or 3 years, maybe. But I was born in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I lived for about like the first 11 years of my life. I lived in Wisconsin. We were at a town in the middle of nowhere. Both my parents graduated from a college there and worked there for 15 years, and so that's where I spent the first 12 years of my life. And then around 11 or 12, me and my family moved out to the island of Guam, where I went to school from 6th grade till I graduated high school.
What was that like?
Warm. The move actually didn't rattle me as a kid. I remember me and my brother being super stoked. We made friends pretty quickly, adjusted well. And yeah, I loved it. That's where I consider myself like being from or like growing up.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't quite the majority of my life, like as a child, but yeah.
That's pretty cool. Were your family in military or was it just for other reasons?
It was ministry based, so we weren't missionaries, but through the college that they worked at, and we had connections out there, and so like the camp administrator, the guy that ran the camps that at the college they worked at, he became the head pastor out at this church on the island of Guam, and they kept tabs on one another, and there was a need. And he brought them out on a missions trip. So they had a really bad storm, a really bad typhoon blow through, ripped the school apart. And so our church at the time sent out a team. My parents were on that team, and little did they know they were being scouted just to see if they'd be a good fit out there. And they were offered jobs. And yeah, we moved out there. My dad was like head of one of the chief administrators, headed up a project where we built like a multi-purpose building out there, gym, classrooms, computer lab. multi-purpose rooms, stage for all the fine arts stuff. And so, and then my mom worked in the office, which is where I spend a lot of time drinking their coffee. I'm telling you, it all comes back to coffee.
It all comes back to coffee. I just texted my wife because I don't quite remember because we haven't talked about it in over a decade, but I'm pretty sure she lived in Guam for a year.
Oh, dang.
It was either a year or two. It was either she lived there or just her dad went TDY there, but I don't quite remember. Okay. So I'm gonna
military related or
military related, yeah. Okay. So we're gonna circle back to that once I find out, once she texts me back.
So there's a joke on Guam where it's just like, if you're white, people ask you, "Oh, do you go to this church or are you military?" Those are like the two options. So yeah, I'm used to being asked if I'm military or not.
Well, I mean, besides the specific stuff that you just laid out there, what was your childhood like growing up? Like, what were you into as a kid?
Yeah, I remember like being super young and watching the original Star Wars trilogy with my dad, and like vividly, I remember like scenes from it with my dad watching, eating Doritos on our couch from the 90s and yeah, just being super into Star Wars. I had like all the Star Wars toys. I had that one like Millennium Falcon that like wasn't quite a transformer, but it had like two pieces that like folded out, and it was supposed to turn into a Y-wing, but it was like, I don't know. I vividly remember that. I had a ton of Star Wars Lego, so I was super into Star Wars growing up. And then, I don't know, like middle school, early high school is when I got a GameCube. And so that's when I kind of really got into Nintendo, playing Zelda and all sorts of stuff. I had a Game Boy pretty early on too, so I played a lot of that stuff. I played a lot of the like games, like spin-offs of like current movies, and I mean, you remember Aladdin and like Lion King, stuff like that. Yeah. But then moving on into like Scooby-Doo and like all this stuff. Like, so none of the like AAA games that were coming out at the time, I was just playing all
Lion
these
King
like,
game, man.
Like terrible like spin-offs from movies and stuff where the levels are super hard.
Yeah, the Lion King game was real difficult. Aladdin was too, as I recall.
Yeah. Those ones specifically were very early on. They got, I don't want to say they got better, because they didn't.
Yeah, not the ones that are based on movies too much.
But then, yeah, like into high school, me and my buddies were super into RuneScape. And so played a lot of RuneScape. So much so that our English class in high school, instead of us writing like reports on books we've read, our teacher gave us the option of doing video projects. And so, you know, like all the normal students would go home and like, you know, record with their little point and shoot cameras and do, you know, all that stuff. Me and my buddies would go home. I'm not kidding. We probably put like over 100 hours into this project, because we recorded the whole thing in RuneScape, like acted it out, like screen capped it, acted it out. And then with our later ones, we would just rip all of the music off of like current movies and stuff. So that was super illegal. But we would record voiceovers in our ministry, like the church school there. The school we went to had a radio station, like a local Christian radio station. And we would go there and we would pull in teachers and our friends, and we would have them record the parts for our project. And so it was just this whole ordeal, way over the top. We did like Scarlet Letter, we did Frankenstein's monster,
wow.
We did Beowulf. It was incredible. And to this day, I don't know, like they were posted to YouTube, but they got taken down for copyright infringement and all of that. And so it's just like all of that work is just gone. But yeah, that was me growing up.
Well, let's move into your romantic life here. How did you meet your wife, Asia, known as Asia the girl? Asia the girl on Twitch.
It is, yeah, on all the socials, on the
socials,
Twitch.
Yeah.
So I met her on Guam. I remember, we both remember the day we met each other, because at the time, it was one summer. She was working like the summer school program, like we called it Cool School. So it was just like daycare with a little bit of education in there. And she was helping volunteer. And I, being the nerd that I was working IT at this school, going around classroom to classroom, defragging all the computers, as one does. And that's when like Facebook had all the like, you could add all the like widgets and things to your wall on Facebook, and you would have like, there was like the graffiti like widget that you could draw on each other's like wall. There was the like,
I don't remember that season of Facebook. I think I was still loyal.
Oh man, it was so early on. If I could take anything back in time to like what it was, it would be Facebook, because it was.
I literally thought you could only do that kind of stuff on MySpace. I don't remember that from Facebook.
Yeah,
I always saw.
Well, Facebook was like trying real hard.
Straight laced.
Zanga, all that stuff.
Zanga blogs.
But so we met there, and so I brought up Facebook because you could have all this stuff on your wall, and like her and her friends were in there in this classroom working. I like drew something on their like Facebook walls for them, like some, I don't know, like terrible beach scene. And then like I remember drawing one for her, and then like we just got talking, hit it off, and I mean the rest is history. But yeah, ever since high school, we've been high school sweethearts.
So what's married life like? How long y'all been married?
7 years, just a couple of months ago. Yep.
What makes your marriage unique in your opinion?
I mean, we're both super nerdy in our own ways, and we both just like lean into that. You mentioned earlier she streams on Twitch as well as Asia the Girl, and so she's doing like puzzly, like cozy games, and then I'm on the other side of the house streaming like Fortnite and Marvel Snap and all this weird stuff.
Yeah, you're the only couple that I'm aware of that has two completely separate full streaming spaces.
Yeah,
set up in your house.
And I even told her, I'm like, we could share a space, like we'll build you a desk and all this stuff. And she was like super adamant on like, no, I want my own space, which
makes sense,
which is fantastic. And I'm, I wasn't hurt by it. She wasn't trying to like escape me or anything. But no, she's got her own space. I've got a space, and we're like super thankful for it. And
for a little while, y'all were also set up in the kitchen, right? Because she was doing those cook along.
I mean, that was a constant like setup and tear down for her.
Yeah.
To do stuff in the kitchen.
Those were fun. I did like those.
Yeah, she's wanting to get back to those, and I'm wanting to do some stuff outside because I've recently gotten to cooking as well, like because of my Blackstone. If you follow me on Twitter at all, you'll know that I'm a Blackstone fiend. But I would love to do some streams out there too. But cool. Yeah, I'm just super thankful. Like she's like just as into it, but in her own way. Like it's not just like, oh, I'm into this thing that you do. We have a shared Discord because each of us had a Discord, and we're like, why are we doing this separately? We have like the same community, so we joined that. We tried to join our TikTok accounts, but then it just stayed the same. It was like Luke and Asia, but I just kept posting my stuff, and then she would post to her TikTok. And so literally just today I took it back. I changed it back to my name, and I like released a video of just like, let's do this one more time. And it kind of did like a whole intro to myself again. So.
All right.
Yeah, we're constantly learning and growing alongside each other, and it's been a huge blessing for sure.
That's awesome, brother. And congrats on the 7 years, man. 7 years ain't no joke.
No, I can't believe it's been that long, honestly.
All right, so switching gears from marriage here, what is something about you that most people don't know?
Dude,
Or are you an open book?
I missed this question when I was reading these earlier. This is a good one. And all I can think of is the latest Secret Wars episode, which no spoilers, but there's like a question that is asked as that same thing. So,
Secret Invasion. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh yeah. What did I call it?
You said Secret Wars.
Oh, it's
the comic
book. I'm sorry. It's the same.
Yeah, I know what question you're talking about though.
It's great. You guys should go watch it.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you didn't know I was from Guam.
I mean, I didn't. Yeah, but do most people not know that?
A lot of people don't. A lot of people ask if we have doorbells.
What?
Or like just like random things on Guam. Like I'll tell them I'm from Guam.
Oh, in Guam.
Do you have like? Do you live in houses? Do you have doorbells?
Do you have a doorbell in your house? What?
How close is that to the Bahamas? I was like, not close. Oh man. Okay.
What about something
that
you're secretly into?
Just met me and they see my like board game collection behind me. They're like, dude, you've probably been collecting for a long time. I didn't have any of this until I met Matt and Bubba like 3 years ago.
So your secret shame is that you got really hyperfixated on buying board games in a short amount of time.
Oh man, I liked, Risk and Monopoly, and Catan was probably the like closest thing to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And then I met Matt and Bubba and they're like, "Do you play board games?" And I was like, "I play Catan." And they're like, "Okay, perfect. You should come over and play board games." And then like my first time playing like something outside of, Hasbro was like on a Love Thy Nerd stream like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my intro to board games and Love Thy Nerd.
They infected you for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Today I want to dive a bit deeper into the faith journey of Luke. Are you up for it, my friend?
Oh, I'm up for it. I'm excited about this one.
Well, let's start about the day one. How did you come to Christ? Salvation story.
Great question. I grew up in a Christian family. I grew up independent fundamentalist, and if you know what that is, you know what that is.
Ooh.
But I grew up just like going to Sunday school, going to summer camps, being in a private Christian school. So I was just constantly surrounded. I knew nothing else. And I could tell you I prayed the prayer of salvation multiple times, probably like once a summer at camp.
Just want to keep re-upping it. Yeah.
As you do. Yeah. You never could be too safe, right? Because that's biblical. And it wasn't until, so yesterday we talked about me like moving out to Guam, and how like I was super stoked to do that. But like as we're packing up our house, we're literally like my dad bought I don't know how, like a 22-foot like long container, like a shipping container, however long those are. Like he bought one, and we were just like loading up our house in that, like shipping it overseas. Like we parked our minivan in that thing, like just shipped our entire life over. And I remember one evening just surrounded in boxes. I started talking to my dad of like, why are we doing this again? Like, I think it's cool. I think islands are cool. We could go to the beach for Christmas. That's pretty cool. But why? And I mean, we were talking about the ministry, like why he feels like we're being called out there. And I remember that night, like after just hearing it over and over again, it just like actually clicking. And so right then and there, in the year 2004, prayed the prayer, and it actually meant something to me. And like from then on, it was night and day. When we got out to Guam, and I immediately just started like volunteering and doing different things in the church. Started helping with audio video stuff at a very young age, and so it was cool. It was an amazing experience, and being able to just see that night and day difference, especially with like a move like that across the world.
Yeah. I got to pray the prayer twice. That's what I did. The first time I didn't mean it.
Yeah.
I was at I guess it was a youth event, but it was like in a big arena, like a big stadium kind of, like a basketball stadium, whatever. Still called stadiums? I don't know. For basketball, I'm not thinking football, but they're all stadiums. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And like I felt that, like I felt the pull when they were doing like the altar call thing, the overly emotional thing. But the fact that we were in a stadium screwed it up. Like I'm feeling that pull, and they're like, come on down and talk to one of our counselors. I'm like, okay. It took me 15 minutes to get there. And in that 15 minutes, I'm like, maybe I don't really feel this. Like the emotion part of it, like drained out. And I'm like, maybe it's just emotion that I'm feeling. And so I was already down there, and the person that happened to spot me as counselor was my actual youth pastor. And so I'm like, oh crap. Yeah. Well, guess I'm gonna lie.
Yeah.
Man. went through the whole thing, and then lied for 3 years, I think. Just
that's crazy.
And I was stuck. And so I had to it was 2003, my junior year, when that conviction finally hit me, and it wasn't at an event. It wasn't in an overly emotional state. It was just like, oh gosh, I've been putting this off for far too long, and broke down in my own driveway, and then had to tell my now wife, then girlfriend of several years, and pastor, and everybody else. Oh, I'm so sorry. But I feel like a lot of people do that.
You feel so apologetic, and that's just like, oh man, I messed up. But like in reality, I bet everyone was just super stoked at that moment. Right. Like no one was just like, how dare you lie to me for 3 years?
Yeah, it was. I didn't get any cross feedback from it. It was all good. Oh, by the way, yesterday you had mentioned Guam, and you mentioned it again here. And I had said I thought my wife might have lived there, and no. She went to visit there many times. Her grandparents lived in Guam for 8 years. So it wasn't even military related, and it might have been ministry related. Yeah. Because they were, he was a pastor, at least. I know that. So yeah.
Oh, I'm interested.
I knew there was Guam somewhere in the past. I just couldn't remember what now. All right. Can you tell us, since your salvation experience there, how has your faith changed over the years? I'm assuming you're not an independent fundamentalist anymore.
No, not anymore. No, just so last year, man, it was, like I said, I grew up like that, in the Baptist church for like all through high school. And literally it wasn't until college, I was like freshman year, I was getting to know people on my dorm room, or on like the dorm floor. I was next door to my dorm, and people were arguing like Calvinism and Arminianism. And I was just like, bro, I thought we were all Christians here. I'm so confused. What are you talking about?
That was my least favorite era.
Oh, yeah. Dude. So they're just like, what are you? I'm like, a Christian? I thought? I don't know. What are
you have to be one or the other. I'm not either of them. Okay, then you're a Molinist. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so like college was just eye-opening. There was a lot of that though. There was a lot of that like back and forth, and I kind of just scraped by because personally, like I went to college to like work. Like they needed someone to run the AV department, and I was there and just kind of just like gunning for it my freshman year. And that's like what I was doing. And that was I went to the same college my parents did. So everyone knew me. Like this whole entire staff knew me. Like all my professors knew me because of my dad. And they knew my dad. So they were like, if I was just not in class and they would see me, they're like, oh, were you working? I'd be like, yeah, I was working. And they're like, okay, that's fine. Just catch up later. And so it was just like, I missed so much class because I was working all the time and all of that. So I kind of like scraped by. I didn't, join in on any of the arguments or the debates or anything, and which I'm thankful for that. But yeah, like college was the first time where I'm like, there's a whole other world out there. Like I've been in this bubble for so long, and so just ever since college, I've tried to have this mindset of just like, I don't know anything. I always have something to learn. And I think that like by God's grace has allowed me to just like learn and be more accepting for, you know, like when I come across something new. And so it's just like, can digital ministry work? Can digital discipleship work? Can like a digital church work and stuff like that? And so thankfully, you know, coming across new things like that, you know, I feel like I've been prepped and I've come out of that being like, I'm not going to be quick to judge. I'm going to actually take time, hear you out, and like do my own digging. Because I think growing up independent fundamentalist, it was just like, I would ask questions like, well, why are we taught this? Well, that's what we were taught, like by our elders. Well, why did they teach that? Well, that's what they were taught. And then it just keeps going back to like, it was just teaching, and never back to scripture. Yeah. And so now it's just like, let me challenge that by going to scripture and learning for myself and asking questions and doing all of that. And so that's what's been the big change for me.
And I really think that's the right kind of mindset to have. Like, I belong to a Southern Baptist church, but not every single thing that I have come to like learn or believe is 100% in line. It's just probably the closest in our area. And it's a better mindset to have, to be open to where, you know, God's going to lead you. God's going to show you to do your own, you know, studying and all that, with, you know, influences, of course, from people that have done this for years and, you know, done this as, you know, their career and their, you know, their college, seminary, all that kind of stuff. Influences are great. But to just blindly accept doctrine from one denomination or the other and then fight tooth and nail for it, even though you don't know why it's a thing, that's far too common.
Yeah.
And does a disservice to many people who are interested in the faith and come to your church.
Yeah. And being in such a like big space, like the digital space, and like meeting other Christians, like we all have completely different views on certain things. And so it's like, when I do come across someone that's just got a complete different idea, like I'm willing to entertain like a conversation. But at the end of the day, like sometimes I'm just like, dude, we could both be wrong. like neither one of us knows what we're talking about, and we could get to those pearly gates and find out that we were both wrong, and we're going to laugh it off and then go to our mansions.
Keep the main thing. Everything else just doesn't, it's not worth fighting over. Yeah.
Not at all.
So you've been working with Love Thy Nerd beyond being in staff, but like for a while. Like you said, you met Matt and Bubba about 3 years ago, right? So good amount of time here. How has working with LTN influenced your faith or your mission, you know, mindset?
Oh man, I mean, that's just one of those things where I'm like, just kept an open mind, and I was just ready to learn. I never really looked at like the digital space or like a nerdy space as a mission field. And like we talk about it a lot, where it's just like, oh, I'm going on a missions trip, and you automatically think like short-term missions trip to Africa to help build houses, or to South America to help build houses or something. And that was like my mindset. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I was a part of several, so like being on Guam, I went to Japan. I went to a lot of the like Marianas Islands, the Micronesian Islands, and help build houses and like a church building. And I'm pretty sure they're still standing today. But it's still like, I like really appreciate those. Like they have their space. I'm not railing on them at all. I would not change those experiences for the world. But yeah, meeting Matt and Bubba, being a part of LTN and seeing like, hey, you speak this language and we can send you into a space where where you can use that language to reach other people that are, you know, like that's their native language as well as nerddom. It's just, there's just something sweet about that. And so Like we just got back from a missions trip, and being able to see others experience that for the first time, like I experienced it for the first time, was just so rewarding. And yeah, like that just kind of, like I said, that having that open mind of just like, I don't know anything and I'm going to take this for what it is and like do my own studying and be like, dang, this is it. This is the real deal.
It's fantastic. So we've got a good balance, it seems like, of your Christian side and your nerdy side here, especially in these last few years. Have those two sides ever conflicted in you?
Oh yeah. I mean, even just like the balance of like real life, you know, like coinciding with my Christian side and then my nerdy side. So like fresh out of college, graduated, and Destiny dropped for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And I downloaded it immediately because I'm like, I like Halo. This is just Space Wizard Halo, and I'm probably gonna like it. And sure enough, I liked it so much that I literally put 40, maybe more hours a week into that game. You have 3 characters on it, and there's like raids and all sorts of stuff and challenges you could do. I like did everything I could every single week because it would reset every week.
You put in a 40-hour work week
yeah.
a full-time job.
Yeah, I had a regular job, like full-time job, working for the college. I did that. I had a relationship. Like Asia and I were dating at the time, and I'll talk about that here in a second.
And a second full-time job of playing.
But like, man, I just, when I got home, also like me and my roommate, at the time we had our TVs side by side, like on 2 different like shelves, just side by side TVs, and then we had those like rocker gamer chairs that like sat on the floor.
Classic, yeah.
And like we were just Destiny together. And then like Asia would come over, she would wash our dishes because we're slobs and do homework, and I'm just there playing Destiny. And so that like really cut me off from relationships, and I was just focused on that. And again, going back to my kind of like history in the church of like, I was taught like, if you're distracted by something like that, like it's a sin and you need to just burn it, and you can't like give it away, you can't sell it because you could cause someone else to stumble. So you literally have to just throw everything away and destroy it because it's sinful. And so I was just like, I got to get rid of this stuff because like my relationship with Asia was struggling, my relationship with other people was struggling. Like I had no direction, I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I was just like, this has to go. But then like Asia and some like other really close people, like my mentors, they're all like, you know, God is bigger than that. He can redeem the time. Like he can take something that is hurting your relationships, and he can take that and build relationships with it. And you need to figure out how to do that. And so, I stopped playing as much as I did. But I also, that's when I recently discovered Twitch, like very early on, and YouTube and all of that stuff. So I started like trying to meet people by creating weekly videos and posting those on YouTube. If you do a deep dive, you could probably still find those when I still had hair. And but yeah, it was just, that was kind of like the turning point for me to like stop just like solely diving into my nerdy side and like cutting myself off, which is that's what I wanted, was that alone time. But instead like using that to like meet new people. And then long story short, like I didn't get into Twitch, I didn't, you know, get super into YouTube until like later on again when COVID hit. And then that's when I started like, man, I'm hungry for that community again, and started streaming. I met Matt and Bubba. I met all sorts of other Christians in the space, and it like the rest is history.
And we are going to dive into your nerdy side and Twitch streaming and a little more with Love Thy Nerd here in the next couple days. But I think that's filled us in pretty well with your faith journey. The destroying the things, because you don't want to put it back out into the world. That seeped into my life as well. I used to have, this is the dumbest thing. I was when I was a teenager, I had all this music, all these CDs, none of which I think, maybe one or two, even had like curse words in it or anything like that. I had a lot of like instrumental music and all this stuff too. And like someone just, some well-meaning adult in my church told all of us that we should cut up all of our non-Christian CDs.
Yeah.
And so I like, okay. And I did that and like to cut every single thing. Things, none of, almost like 95% of which had nothing sinful about them.
Yeah.
All
Dude,
gone.
Okay. Quick story, like just on music and stuff too. Again, my background, I couldn't listen to things with drums because those were of the world. We're supposed to be in the world and not of it. And so anything with drums was a no-go. But my friend, so I had an iPod Nano that had like all this Christian music on it that I was allowed to listen to, and the Bible read by James Earl Jones was all on my iPod. And then I had a PSP that had all of like my real music on it that I listened to. And then my friend let me borrow a Switchfoot CD. Ooh. And that was in my sock drawer, and my mom found it. And one day I came home and my dad was just like, he was like literally, I don't know how long he was waiting in the kitchen, but like he had to, I don't know. I just imagine him waiting there all night until I got home. Walked in and he hit like play on it, and it was like the first song on, I can't remember which CD it was, but I was just like, oh heck yeah, I love this song. Like in my head I'm like, oh wait, why is this playing out loud? And but like he wasn't like, I remember them, that was kind of like the turning point for them too, of just like, here's me like thinking like I'm being rebellious by listening to stuff like that. But then it was actually like, that's a whole other story of how like God used that to like work in my parents' lives to like again like go over like what we were just talking about, of just like, let's take this challenge and let's go to scripture and see what scripture says, and not just like, oh, this is what our church says. And so he tells that story of just like how he's so thankful for me and being, you know, challenging to them. And like in my brain, I was just like, I was just being rebellious.
This was how I rebelled. I listened to Dare You to Move.
One other time, I was like listening to something on my iPod or something at the time. At this time, I did have other stuff on my iPod, but like somebody, like one of my youth leaders was just like, what are you listening to? And I was just like, huh? And then he like pinned me against the wall. He's like, what are you listening to? I was like, are you allowed to do this? But like, man, music was crazy. Yeah.
See,
I'm there with you, man.
I thought I had it strict when I was growing up Catholic, but those IFB churches.
There was like an article that was published about Switchfoot, how they were like a wolf in sheep's clothing, or no, a sheep in wolf's clothing. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that article, but that sounds correct in my head.
Like, and so, that was used against me and like all sorts of stuff.
Well, it should have been, because if they're sheep in wolf's clothing, that means they're Christians who appeal to the world when they're putting Christian messages into what is seen as secular music, which is accurate. They don't really mention Jesus by name or God by name all that often. Yeah. But their lyrics are solid, so I'm fine with it.
I'll listen to some. Hey, can we cue that up on the radio?
They
please?
just came out. They just came out with they just redid the entire Beautiful Letdown album. Like they re-recorded everything.
I'm pretty sure that's the CD.
That was a banger front to back. I loved every single track on that album. We've learned about his life. We've learned about his faith journey. But today I want to learn about just how deep nerdiness runs through his veins. Are you ready, Luke?
I'm so ready.
You ready to prove yourself as a professional nerd?
Oh, I didn't know I had to prove myself. We'll see. Do we have a panel of judges? Am I judged by my peers?
You're always being judged. A simple question, maybe a big question, I don't know, but simple at least. What are some things that you have like geeked out about over your whole life? You mentioned a few of them I think, day one. But go ahead and recap for people that might have missed it. Things that are just,
for sure.
Luke, these are the things that I love.
All right. So, like I said a couple days ago, from a very young age, I remember just being into Star Wars, watching that with my dad, eating Doritos, and just the original trilogy. And then like there were like a couple little spin-offs, like cartoons and that at the time. But like having all the Lego like figures for that, collecting all those sets, having just weird, obscure like Star Wars toys and what have you. Video games. I had my first console was a handheld. It was the Game Boy Pocket. It was the translucent purple. And if you ever see me with my Nintendo Switch, I got one of those mod kits to do the translucent purple Joy-Cons.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it kind of just as like a nod back to my origins. And I had it like, all the new Game Boys growing up.
What was your favorite game on the Pocket? Because that's still original. That's still original Game Boy games, right? That's still the full square size thing.
Probably I think it was Super Mario Bros. 2 or Super Mario Bros. World.
Super Mario World.
Super Mario World.
The one with Wario as the boss?
No.
Ah, darn. That was my favorite.
No.
6 golden
No, that's
coins.
what I'm thinking. There was like a second one, I think. And like I played that.
That was the second.
I'll have to look.
That was the second one. The first one was just Super Mario. Oh no, Land. Super Mario Land.
I think that was it
too.
I think that was it. And I remember playing that like in the car, like at night, like leaning into the street light, trying to play.
Did you have the little weird peripheral that could like magnify it and turn a light on eventually?
Oh heck yeah! I got that eventually. I had the worm light first, and then I got the like magnifying glass one. But like I think one of my favorite consoles was the Game Boy Advance SP. So it was the first one that had a backlit screen.
That was the
like
clamshell one, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And on that I had Advance Wars, and that was like my jam. And they finally made a remake of that for the Switch, and so I played that more than I've played Tears of the Kingdom. Don't hate me.
Is it a remake or is it on the Virtual Console?
No, it's a remake. They made Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp.
Oh, okay.
And they delayed it for like so long because of like all the wars going on, and so they were trying to be respectful.
Oh,
and it just
sense.
They pushed it back and back and back, and then they pushed it back so much they just canceled everyone's pre-orders.
Oh,
and I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to get this now, but I loved it so much I had to get it. So, yeah, I was super into that. Growing up, my first like console I plugged into a TV was the PlayStation 1. Actually, not even the PlayStation 1. It was just the PlayStation. The PlayStation 1, they like slimmed it down and like rounded the corners, but I had the like OG PlayStation.
Yeah. Just the original.
I had this like Star Wars Street Fighter game that my dad threw away because of Slave Leia. Wasn't allowed to have that in the house. And but dude, yeah, that's kind of where my gaming started. Had a GameCube.
That was the only one I didn't have. That was Nintendo. I did not have the GameCube. I switched to Xbox for that generation. I didn't regret it.
Yeah, see, so I didn't have an Xbox until the 360 in college because again, all Xbox had was shoot 'em up games, and I couldn't have those. Even though my youth group would put on Halo parties.
Well, you're only shooting aliens then. Those are demons.
That's what I.
Those are demons in disguise.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't as lucky as Bubba in getting away with playing Diablo. He was slaying demons.
No. Well, Bubba didn't really have anybody watching him. I got away with a lot of stuff I wasn't supposed to do at Bubba's house.
Well, that's what. So like, I would go to my friend's house and like play their Xboxes and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was super into video games. Now, like, still very much into it. Have a PC now, all that good stuff. But into Marvel, everything Marvel. I love TV shows, like whether they're considered nerdy or not. Asia and I just finished the second season of The Bear. It's a Hulu original.
I've heard about that. Is it good?
Crazy good.
Yeah.
If you can, like, if you don't mind a little bit of anxiety, which I'm usually not a fan of. I'm a very anxious person, but like, I mean, like, you talk about shaky cam, like, dude, they're just like running in and out of like this kitchen and doing all sorts of stuff, and people are shouting and screaming at each other, and it's insane. But it's like a 10 out of 10 show. Like even Rotten Tomatoes has it at like 100%.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I've heard very minute things, but I need to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
what's been your favorite console that you've owned in your life?
I mean,
with set of games and everything, you know, like what was the best one?
I probably got to say my 360. Really? I like just everything was on that, and that's kind of like what just kind of like I said, when I went to college, I could do my own thing, and so I'm like, I'm gonna buy an Xbox 360 and I'm gonna buy Halo and Call of Duty and play that because my mom can't stop me. And yeah, like Call of Duty Black Ops, playing zombies with people, like Halo 3 on that thing, ODST, 4 if you want to include that, even though it wasn't that great.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been a pretty popular. I didn't, because I jumped back to Nintendo after the Xbox, the first one. I can't say the Xbox One because that's not that system. Xbox been confusing.
Did you have? So you said you were on Xbox.
Original
Did you play
Xbox.
Black? The game Black. The cover was literally just a bunch of like bullet shells, and it said Black.
Hold on, let me look at it. If I can see the
I'm
cover,
telling you,
I'll
that
remember.
game was top tier, and it did not last because it was overshadowed by Call of Duty and Halo. But like that game was top tier.
I recognize it. I have played it. I didn't own it, but I did play it. Yeah, I'm remembering that.
So not a lot of people remember it, but like I remember like it was yesterday playing the graveyard level where there's like a sniper up in the church steeple. Dude, I could so many hours just trying to get through that, sneak around. And then Fable was on the original Xbox.
Oh, that's right. So what are some things that you're really into right now?
Oh man,
Like
perhaps you've heard of this. There's this little game called Marvel Snap.
You're still running that Marvel Snap. It killed me. I just couldn't do it anymore. I was all
Are you
in.
done? Did you give up?
Oh, it was at least a month ago. Yeah, like I just like it's taking too much of my life. I couldn't do anything else.
It's so you're totally fine.
I have not been that addicted to a game in a long time.
I'm still into it, man. This season I hit Infinite for the first time.
Yeah.
And then I haven't gone Infinite, so they just released the Conquest mode, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's fine. It could be better. But I have a couple of Infinite tickets, which is you have to win you have to beat 5 people in a row. So like a tiered thing. So if you make it all the way to the end, you get a special infinity border around your like profile pic or whatever. I really don't care about it, but like I just on stream the other day like got an infinity ticket for the first time, and I'm just like, oh great, now I have to try. And then I was just super anxious. I didn't want to do it on stream, so I'm like, we're gonna play Fortnite instead. So that's the other thing I'm super into right now is Fortnite.
And that's really one that's been going on for a long time. How long have you been into it? Since the beginning or just recently?
No, not at all. So since the beginning of Fortnite, I ridiculed people for playing Fortnite. It's like, what is this cartoon of a game? Come play Halo or Call of Duty or something. And then I just was never into the building side of it. And then recently they made like a no build mode, and I dabbled in it a little bit, but then we started a young adult group at our church, and then like just people in the LTN community and people in our community. Like there's just so many people that play where I'm like, I'll try it out one season, and I was just hooked. And I think the thing that got me was it's a different game every week. So it's like every week on like Monday or Tuesday, they'll like vault some weapons, they'll put some new weapons in, they'll add like a new item, they'll take out old items, they'll change part of the map, they'll add things, and it's like they do that on the regular, like week to week. Wow. And so it's just so fresh, so different. Like the movement, everything is so different week to week, and that's what pulls me back in.
The last time I played it was before they started letting you remove the build option.
Yeah,
and I also did not like the build mechanic. Like it just I couldn't multitask that well.
If I want to build, I'm gonna go play Roblox or Minecraft. Like I want to play a shooter because the gunplay in that game is very well done, and the movement and everything. Now, build is what makes Fortnite unique. You take that out, it's just like any other battle royale. But that's what I like. So
yeah, I agree. Okay, well, let's jump into your Twitch life here.
Sure.
I'm gonna admit, because it is Frostbite 4, right? It's Roman numerals 4.
Yeah.
When I first saw your name, for some reason, I did not think Roman numerals. I was thinking it was Frostbite IV, like you had frostbite going directly into your veins, like you're that cold of a killer.
I kind of like that. Like I've never really explored that, but if someone asks, that's now my answer.
So why that name? Why Frost at all? Frost is kind of your shorthand online name, but what made you choose Frostbite as your online handle?
Okay, so this is going back to the last question you asked on the first day of like, what do people not know about me? Here's my gamer tag before I was Frostbite. Are you ready for this? I made it when I was in 6th grade, so go easy on me. But it was Little Jedi Man. So I still have my email. I still have, that's what my RuneScape account was. And I didn't create a new email and be like, I gotta change this name until I opened my first bank account in college. And they're like, what's your email? Little Jedi Man at Gmail or at Hotmail, whatever I had at the time. And they're just like, I'm not kidding. The banker was just like, you could just create a new email, right? I'm like, oh man, you're probably right. I should.
They're free, right? That's hilarious.
But yeah, so around the time where I'm like, I'm gonna redeem the time, like I want to be able to do this and like connect with people. I don't want to connect with people being known by that name. And so I was just trying to think of something creative. And it honestly came about because at the time, that's when like Dark Knight and all of that was like super popular. And so it's like, I was like, oh, I'm going to be like Batman and take like something I hate or my fear and like turn it into my strength, like use it. And so like, I hate the cold. I absolutely hate the cold. Like, give me like 100-degree weather like any day over below 0. Yeah, I do not. It's just I'm going to keep moving south. I will never move back up north. So that's where the frost comes. That's me. That's my Batman side. And then the bite is like BYTE. So that's my techie side. I grew up in IT. I grew up in the AV industry. All of that. And so that was like my nerdy techie side. And then the 4, me and my buddies from high school that all played RuneScape together, we all had that Roman numeral 4 because we had one of our buddies, he was our Chinese friend. In China, 4 is a very unlucky number. And so our thought was like, we're going to bring all this bad luck to people. Like when we face them in the Call of Duty lobbies. And so that's where that is. That literally just ties me to my high school gamer buds.
Wow. Okay. So you said you learned about Twitch early on, but how long? You said I'm remembering correctly. You joined at the beginning of the COVID time. Is that right?
Yeah.
You started streaming.
So
then?
in college, or like fresh out of college, I was like watching YouTube videos on Destiny because that's what I was into. And I saw this guy's like videos like 6 hours long. I'm like, what on earth? But I was like watching it because he was just like playing the game. But then I noticed like very quickly he was like talking to someone, and then there was a chat, and I was just like, I need to figure out what this is. So I like looked at his bio, like he's got a link to this thing called Twitch. I went over there. I'm like, I can watch people play this game live. It just like blew my mind.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool platform, or the idea. I know it's not the only platform that does that. Even YouTube does it now, but
yeah.
But I had never experienced that either until getting involved with Love Thy Nerd. As they were setting up for the first online LTN con in 2020. I'm like, well, how are they going to pull this off? And just seeing what this platform was pretty entertaining. So, what's your Twitch process like? Like, how do you choose what you want to stream? What's something specific that you do that other Twitch streamers don't do, or maybe things that you've copied from other Twitch streamers and made your own?
I mean, I definitely try to do like what we do here at LTN with just like having quality content. I don't want my quality to be crappy. Like, I don't want a really crappy looking camera, and like I don't want to just do anything halfway. And so I try to keep it like good quality. I want someone to tune in and be able to hear me clearly and see me clearly in the game, all of that. But outside of that, I just try to like be inviting, invite people in, and spark those conversations because I want them to come back. I want to build that relationship with people, and people aren't going to stay if, you know, you're talking in a McDonald's drive-through microphone and have a, you know, you got that, you know, your camera in a Happy Meal from the same trip to McDonald's. And so I think that's like one thing that I just strive to do, is have at least good quality, like for people to watch and enjoy. As far as like deciding what game I want to play, it's literally just what I'm into. And if I were to give someone advice on like what they should play, like play what you love, because if you're not, and I've done this to myself, I've tried to suffer through a game that I did not like just to get through it on stream, and it shows. Like people can tell that you're not enjoying something, and that goes back to not being good quality content.
When we earlier on, I think there was it was still when you were streaming with LTN like every day. I think there was a week that you were going to be gone, or maybe you were sick or something, and so all of us kind of split up the days that you're doing. And I'm like, well, people have been trying to get me to do Fable for a while.
Oh yeah.
And so I was going to try Fable on stream, and so I did that as one of my days. Is I played Fable for the first time, brand new out of the box kind of thing. I hadn't even pre-played it or anything to get a feel for it, and I enjoyed it enough that day. And I'm like, I might try and keep this up. So I moved it to my night, and at the time my channel. And the second one, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'm into this. I mean, I can see why this would be entertaining for a lot of people, but this isn't my style. But I felt that call of like, you said you were gonna keep playing it, so you should keep playing it. I'm like, but do people really want to watch me pretend that I'm enjoying the game?
So I've played so many different things. Like I started, I think like the first thing I ever streamed was Surviving Mars, which is one of my favorite like Sims like game that I play. I went on to like Gears of War, played that for a little bit. I played Halo, I played Apex. Like today I stream mostly Marvel Snap. And then some Fortnite here and there. But it's play what you love, focus on that, and you'll bring in people that also love that, and you'll have genuine conversations with them. Like, because you both love that.
So
if someone tuned into you playing Fable and they're asking all these questions like, oh, I love this game, like what do you think about this? And you're just like, I
don't know the terminology. So last question here for this on Twitch and on Professional Nerd streaming here for today. What is the best thing and the worst thing about streaming on Twitch or streaming in general?
I mean, the best thing is definitely the community, like tuning in, playing something that you do love. I've met a lot of people that are into Marvel Snap the past, few months, that like we have genuine conversations of like, oh man, I think armor is such an underrated card. Like all, like talking about different decks we use it in, or like even, I poke fun at like high evolutionary decks and like people that use that having no skill, and it's all for fun, but it's like it like the community around it, like, whether you agree with like my hot takes or not, people are genuinely there to just like chat about stuff that they love, and that's just kind of like an open door. Like, we're going to talk about this, I believe, tomorrow, of just like going on mission. Like, it's no different online where you're just like, hey, I speak the language of Marvel Snap right now, and I can talk to you, and I have this open door to like talk to you about this, and then you're going to keep coming back because you want to hear more about that, and then you want to hear more about me, and I want to hear more about you, and then the next thing you know, like, we're sharing life together. And so that's the best thing, and it goes back to my journey of just like being able to redeem that time to like build those relationships. Like, they take time.
Yep.
Worst thing is it takes a lot of time, to like have a decent stream. You don't want to stream like less than 2 or 3 hours, like when you do stream, and doing that on the regular. Like right now, I only stream twice a week. I would love to stream more, but as you said in all of the intros this week, I do our mission strips and I'm helping with NCMS, and it's a lot. And so maybe one day when I have a little bit less on my plate, I'll be able to add another stream or two, and be able to dump more time into making those better quality. Because like right now, I'm kind of just keeping it afloat. It's not like I'm raking in a ton of new viewers or anything, but it's not like it's going anywhere, like dying. And so I'm really thankful for it. But yeah, it's for those of you interested, it's not just hitting go live. You gotta make TikTok content, and you gotta be on Twitter, and just you gotta have other avenues of content to be able to like bring in community. So
yep. We learned all about Luke, the man, but today I want to learn about Luke, the mission. I have a few questions about his work as a nerd culture missionary with Love Thy Nerd. So are you ready, Luke?
I'm totally ready.
All right. I think this will be pretty enlightening for people that are a part of the Love Thy Nerd community, but not deeply a part of it, to where they've been able to go places with us or see those, the mission trips and the conventions and things like that. So I'm excited to have you share. You just returned actually from an LTN mission trip to the Origins convention. Is it called a convention? Yes. It's just Origins.
It's Origins Game Fair.
Origins Game
But
Fair.
It is very much it's a convention.
So can you tell us how this convention went this year?
Oh man, yeah, it went great. So this is kind of, I took on the role of being like head of missions for LTN this year, and so we did a couple smaller ones. We did Tantrum Con at the beginning of the year, which is, I can't remember. I think they had upwards of like 500 people there. But we took a small team there to just like volunteer, teach games, do different things like the game library, like help run that, help run registration and what have you. But this one was like the first one where it was kind of like full-fledged. We had a team of 10 people, and we worked with several companies and publishers at the show. Some friends of ours at Game Toppers, which they make like tabletops that go on top of like folding tables or your dining room table that have big mats, and like
that's cool.
It's modular, so you can put like cup holders and like dice towers and like all sorts of bells and whistles like along the edge. And then they just recently started making legs, and so they sell the full tables now. But we worked with them. we worked with GameFound, and if you're familiar with just like the kickstarting culture, there's obviously Kickstarter that has a lot of games go get their funding from that, but then there's GameFound that's just strictly board games, and so we got to work with them, demo a lot of like games that aren't quite out yet, that were just recently funded or about to be funded, or like just recently hit the market, which was very cool. And then we worked with a smaller company, a smaller publisher, just getting their start, called Envy Born Games, and so he's got a couple games out, one of which is Mind Your Business, which is super fun. It's a fun 2 to 4 player game. Kind of, easy to teach, easy to play, lots of fun. But then he's got some other ones like in the pipeline that we got to see firsthand, which is he's got some cool stuff coming out. So we get to do stuff like that. We get to connect with these companies, publishers, in order to get our team in the booth. And we do that so we can love and serve them well, help them sell their product, help them sell like stock shelves, demo games for people. And we do that because if you've ever been in ministry, you know what it's like working with volunteers. And sometimes volunteers are just warm bodies. We know that's not helpful at all. And so we want to plug in competent, excited, like well-rounded, well-informed volunteers that just go the extra mile every single time. And we do that to show the love of Jesus to people in the booth, to people who we're demoing for, like people coming up, crossing paths with us. When we're not volunteering like that, we're out on the show floor, going booth to booth, sometimes buying way too many games. And then there's also usually open gaming where we go sit down, play games with strangers, all in order to just build those relationships. And people will see us walking around with our Love Thy Nerd shirts, whether it's like they had an interaction with me previously or somebody else on the team. They see our shirt and they know, like, I could go talk to them. Like, they're safe. Like, I could talk to them and they'll listen to me. And it's just a really cool, unique opportunity. So we did that at Origins. It was great. We have Gen Con like a month out from now. So I'm doing post work from Origins and pre-work for Gen Con right now, which is why I've been so busy.
And the idea of being a volunteer that's active and excited and going the full mile instead of just being a warm body, that's kind of paid off in the fact that a lot of these vendors actually call and ask for us if we're going to one of these next convention, like Funko and things like that, Keymaster Games, stuff like that. They're like, we want you guys in our booth here. Are you going to be here? Which is a really cool thing. Like that's
so Funko specifically, we're working with them again for the 3rd year in a row. This will be our 3rd year. So like the 2nd year that they've asked us specifically to come back.
Yeah.
Last year we supplied like 8 to 10 volunteers in their booth, and this year they're like, can you double that?
Really?
And we're like, we could try. And so sure enough, this year Gen Con, the first weekend of August, we're taking 22 missionaries. That includes like myself, Matt, and Bubba, and then 19 other missionaries that have like signed up, are currently raising support. So if you want to go to lovethynerd.com/outreach, you can click on the Gen Con tab, and our whole team will be there. So you can pray for them. You can fund one of them. You could fund all of them if you wanted to, by all means. But yeah, we're taking 22 people, and we're strictly going to be plugged into Funko. We're like outnumbering their staff like 3 to 1 almost.
Really?
Yeah, they got a decent team, but like Gen Con is a beast. It's upwards of 60,000 people. And so they have not only like a booth on the show floor, but they have like a separate room where they're just constantly running demos and selling games. And so they got a pretty big operation. They're one of the sponsors, I believe, of Gen Con as well. And so
That's fantastic. And so that's lovethynerd.com/outreach. And that's also where you could go if you are interested in maybe becoming one of our nerd culture missionaries that go to these things, right? Yeah. That's awesome.
So at the time this goes live, we should have like some of our shows for next year, like already on the website, just so you can kind of take a peek. But we're just at Origins, we met a guy that puts on Grand Con in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he asked if we would come just have a presence there, basically. He's like, you guys can come volunteer, wear your shirts, but he's like, I love your ministry, I love what you do, and I just want you to be present. And so we're going to, he invited us to that. That's in September, so we're going to add that, last minute because we're crazy. But we're already making good progress on that. We know people in the area. I've got people by me that want to be involved, and so we're making that happen later this year. Next year, this is a little insider information. We really want to work towards going to Essen, and that's in Germany. And
that's the thing that Matt Warmbier went to last year, right?
Yes, he went and checked it out, and
that's the world's biggest tabletop gaming convention, correct? Yeah.
Yep. And Gen Con is the biggest in the U.S.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
But yeah, there's at Origins, I talked with several developers and publishers and companies that, like to your point earlier, they see what we do and we have an example, like right there. We're like, hey, here's proof of concept. Go check out GameFound booth. And they see that and they're like, a lot of people's first question is like, do you go overseas? Do you work at Essen? But a lot of people are like, man, that's amazing. I would love to work with you guys. And so some really cool companies that everyone knows and loves want to work with us. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, another project you've been in charge of recently has been leading the team leading a team in a lot of real life events. You started with LTN Con last year. Last year, you were kind of heading up that whole thing, building it up in New Albany, right?
Yeah.
Okay, New Albany. Yep. I keep saying New Amsterdam to other people. New Albany, Indiana, offshoot of Louisville. But how do you think that went? LTN Con 2022. Like, what were your overall thoughts?
I think it went really well.
Yeah.
I loved being able to take a step back and just watch so many people enjoying like so many different things, whether it was like some of the vendors that we pulled together. It was like people playing games, people attending breakout sessions. We had a close friend of LTN donate a ton of snacks. And so we would roll out snacks and drinks and all sorts of stuff. And we had the eat to wins that everyone was confused and thought they were like hot dog eating contests, but they weren't. And I realized I could have described them better on the website.
Yeah, it's probably confusing. Eat to win doesn't imply you're
everyone was
eating
there
to win
and
something.
figured it out. They booked up so
they were
fast.
Great. Yeah, they went so good.
And you got the pleasure to run one yourself
we
with
got
Sunday
to do
School
one.
Answers.
It went so
and I still have some of those promo cards that I throw in every box that I ship out when someone orders a shirt. But yeah,
how many people did we have
well.
come? Like it's a small event compared to, it's not a giant con, but how many people did we have come? Do you remember roughly?
We had over 100 people. I want to say around 120 people signed up. Yeah.
It was pretty full, packed in the areas where we were playing games pretty much all the time.
Cool,
yeah, like it was pretty neat.
So that being said, I definitely learned a lot though from that.
Sure.
We maybe had too much stuff going on because I was dead after that weekend.
It was a pretty tiring weekend, and I spent most of it sitting on my butt at the radio booth. But yeah. So when you and I last talked in an interview format, we talked about not this week, but in the past, we talked about the big event coming up here in November, which is the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit, which we're putting on in partnership with Lux Digital Church. And so can you give us like a recap of just what this event is first?
Yeah. So this kind of started because of LTN Con. we started, like, LTN started LTN Con in 2019 in order to train our community up in like how we do things, how to love and serve our nerdy neighbors. We had sessions, all of that stuff, and then we had obviously games because we're nerds. And then we did it 2 years online, and then last year was the first time in person again, and it was very much so that, you know, we had sessions, we had breakouts, and then we threw in, you know, a bunch of extra things, which was fantastic. But I quickly realized, not that we were losing sight of our main mission, but like a lot of people were there as like a community. Like, people hear what we do on the daily basis, whether they're listening to the radio, our podcasts, reading our articles, all of that stuff. And I'm like, you guys get this all the time. And so I was like, what? I remember I picked up Bubba from the airport. I'm like, what if we split this thing in half? Because we have two really good things here. We have like a community meetup, which is fantastic to have. People want to see each other face to face, and we want to be able to provide that. But also, we're not, like, we have the opportunity to reach way more people outside of our community. And I want to do that, and I think we could do it best if we split it in half. And Bubba's answer was just like, sweet, do it. And so I was like, all right, here we go. And that's where kind of the idea for the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit came about, is because we wanted to create that environment of, we wanted to bring in church leaders, pastors, ministry leaders, people just in the church that want to start like some sort of nerdy outreach in their community. We wanted to be able to bring them in locally and train them and send them out to be able to do that. And so that's what we're doing. We're hosting it in Texas, Marble Falls, Texas. We're really targeting the churches in the surrounding areas. And the idea is we want to move this around, to be able to, like, we're not trying to grow. Like, it's not the LTN Con anymore, which we're still wanting to do, but for our community. But this is for like people that have never heard of Love Thy Nerd before. And we want to bring them in and kind of like multiply. Hey, go do this. Go start a game night in your church. Start a LAN party. Start like board game library for the community. You know, there's so many different things. So we're pulling in local speakers. We're flying in speakers to be able to do this. And all in order to train ministry leads and how they could do this. Because we can't do it alone. Love Thy Nerd's not the answer. We have some answers that we've learned along the way, but it's not like everything needs our stamp. So,
right.
Yeah.
So how is it all coming together? We're a few months out from it. You've been working on it for a long time. What updates can you share with us in regards to like what and who to expect to see there?
Yeah, I mean, we've got all our keynotes locked in. Our one and only Bubba Stallcup is speaking on like developing digital disciples. We've got Mike Erie coming in, if you've ever heard of the Voxology podcast. I recently learned about his podcast and his heart for loving people. Like, again, what we talk about at Love Thy Nerd all the time, loving people first, like getting them to trust us, like, and then earning that right to share truth. He talks a lot about that. Love before law, grace before truth. And then I found out he plays Destiny. And so I was just like, hey, you're a nerd. And actually Zach, aka Saint Bear, he's helping. He's just basically co-leading this with me. He was the point of contact there, and so he was just like, dude, he's a huge nerd. We gotta see if he wants to be a part of this. And praise the Lord, he wanted to be a part of it. And so he's coming. He's going to be talking about how Are You Winning, Son isn't enough. You know, true love, loving your nerds truly, not just popping your head in like, good job, son. You did the thing in the video game. It's like, no, what can you do to actually love and serve your nerdy neighbor? We got Steve Valdez coming in from Save Point Ministries. We've got a whole panel of like digital ministry leads. Jacqueline Parrish is coming back.
Love Jacqueline.
Talking about how to demystify your nerd. And then we have a bunch of breakouts on just youth ministry, using nerdy things in youth ministry and locally and digitally. And that's pretty much all of the programming. You know, that's one of the lessons I learned from LTN Con is like, keep it simple.
Yeah.
And so
we also got Matt Souza, right, from Unity Gaming.
Yes.
And,
yes, thank you. Matt
of course,
Souza is coming.
Yeah.
AKA Susie Live on Twitch and now Kick as well.
Ooh. And then, of course, Lux Digital.
He's kicking the whole thing off for us.
Mark Lutch is going to be there too, right?
Yeah, he's like our, I wanted to say DM. That's a dungeon master. That's a
host?
Different thing. Yeah, he's hosting the whole thing. MC, that's what I was looking for.
MC, that's where we're going, yeah, not DM.
I'm going to bring it up. We should totally change it to the DM. Hey, my name is Mark Lutz. I'm your dungeon master today.
So this is, again, he said it's going to be in Marble Falls, Texas. It's going to be November, 8th through the 10th?
8th to 10th.
November 8th to 10th. You can go to ncmsummit.com right now. You can get your early bird badges through the end of July, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's see. And while, like you said, we are focusing mainly on the areas, in Texas and around, the surrounding states. But if you're in, Maine and you just really want to come, you're more than welcome.
Please. The doors are open to anyone that wants to attend. So even if you are in that, vein of like, I just want to see people face to face again, you can come.
You'll do that here and you'll probably learn a lot.
Yeah.
You just didn't expect to learn. So there will be a little bit of like gaming time and fellowship time there as well, but this is more this is more about this is a summit. It's a conference. It's where you come to actually learn, take something away from it. And LTN Con, when we next have that, is going to kind of be more like an actual convention. It's going to be just games, just fellowship, just fun for the most part. At least that was the idea, right? Splitting it in half.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got another team working on that. We don't have any official dates. We don't have an official location.
Right.
But don't you worry. LTN Con will come back. Hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was the last question that I had. Was there anything else that you want to share with people that are listening about anything whatsoever? Or do you just want to share your Twitch handle again and we'll bounce?
I mean, yeah, if you're into Marvel Snap and nothing else, feel free to stop by twitch.tv/frostbite4. And yeah, I could talk about missions all day long. Like that's like Bubba and I, and like all of us as a staff have really been talking about like finding like where we really belong, like even within the ministry and like missions. I have a huge heart and a huge passion for missions. And so if you want to talk about that, come talk to me about it. LoveThyNerd.com/Luke is where all my information is. If you want to partner with me, all that good stuff. But like, let's talk missions. Let's get you on a trip. Go look at all of them. We've got like probably 7 on there right now, I believe, of just upcoming trips. Some that we're still working on staffing, some that are completely full. But all of that information is there at lovethynerd.com/outreach. So.
All right. Well, Luke, I've had a blast interviewing you this week. Thank you so much for joining us and letting us get to know you better, as well as learn about the exciting things going on in Love Thy Nerd right now. Yeah. You have a fantastic rest of your week, and thank you again, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me. I had a blast talking about all this.
And that's it for our main topic and our interview for the week. Next week, Deidre and I will be back to discuss a new topic, but as for today, we are out of coffee, so it's time to wrap things up. Thank you for joining us for Rise and Shine Nerds. We want to invite you to get behind the scenes by joining our LTN Discord community. Once you've joined at lovethynerd.com/Discord, simply go to the channels and roles and click on the Rise and Shine Nerds channel to gain access to it. You can help us plan shows and segments and even be on the show yourself on occasion. And currently, we are taking suggestions that we will eventually vote on for the new name for our community. Apparently, most people don't like Shiners because there's too many other things named Shiners. And so we are taking options and we will be voting on it during our next hiatus. Subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app or through the Love Thy Nerd YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. And tell us what you think of the show via our socials at Rise and Shine LTN on Facebook and Twitter. Once again, I'm Radio Matt.
And I'm Deidre.
And as always, a reminder,
Jesus loves you, nerds.